Have you ever had a near-death experience? I know I have quite a few in my life. At some point, most of us will have one or will know somebody that has had one. Our body responds to this by either doing the fight or flight response. In Andy Weir's novel, The Martian, the main character Mark is forced to choose between fight or flight as he's left stranded on Mars by himself. This is an excerpt from Andy Weir's novel, The Martian. I awoke to the oxygen alarm in my suit, a steady, obnoxious beeping that eventually aroused me from a deep and profound desire to just die. The storm had abated. I was face down, almost totally buried in the sand. As I groggily came to, I wondered why I wasn't more dead. The antenna had enough force to punch through the suit and my side, but it had been stopped by my pelvis, so there was only one hole in the suit, and a hole in me, of course. I had been knocked back quite a ways and rolled down a steep hill. Somehow I landed face down, which forced the antenna to a strongly oblique angle that put a lot of torque on the hole in the suit. It made a weak sill. Then, the copious blood from my wound trickled down toward the hole. As the blood reached the side of the breach, the water in it quickly evaporated from the airflow and low pressure, leaving a gunky residue behind. More blood came in behind it and was also reduced to gunk. Eventually, it sealed the gaps around the hole and reduced the leak to something that the suit could counteract. The suit did its job admirably. Sensing the drop in pressure, it constantly flooded itself with air from a nitrogen tank to equalize. Once the leak became manageable, it only had to trickle new air in slowly to relieve the air lost. After a while, the CO2 absorbers in the suit were expended. That's really the limiting factor to life support. Not the amount of oxygen you can bring with you, but the amount of CO2 you can remove. In the HAB, I have the oxygenator, a large piece of equipment that breaks apart CO2 to give oxygen back. But the spacesuits have to be portable, so they use a simple chemical absorption process with expendable filters. I'd been asleep long enough that my filters were useless. The suit saw this problem and moved into an emergency mode that engineers called bloodletting. Having no way to separate out the CO2, the suit deliberately vented air to the Martian atmosphere, then backfilled with nitrogen. Between the breach and the bloodletting, it quickly ran out of nitrogen. All it had left was my oxygen tank. So it did the only thing it could to keep me alive. It started backfilling with pure oxygen. I now risked dying from oxygen toxicity, as the excessively high amount of oxygen threatened to burn up my nervous system, lungs, and eyes. An ironic death for someone with a leaky spacesuit, too much oxygen. Every step of the way would have had beeping alarms, alerts, and warnings, but it was the high oxygen warning that woke me up. The sheer volume of training for space mission is astounding. I'd spent a week back on Earth practicing emergency spacesuit drills. I knew what to do. Carefully reaching to the side of my helmet, I got the breech kit. It's nothing more than a funnel with a valve at the end and an unbelievably sticky resin on the wide end. The idea is that you have the valve open and stick the wide end over a hole. The air can escape through the valve so it doesn't interfere with the resin, making a good seal. Then you close the valve and you've sealed the breech. The tricky part was getting the antenna out of the way. I pulled it out as fast as I could, wincing as the sudden pressure drop dizzied me and made the wound in my side scream in agony. I got the breech kit over the hole and sealed it. It held. The suit backfilled the missing air with yet more oxygen. Checking my arm readouts, I saw the suit was now at 85% oxygen. For reference, Earth's atmosphere is about 21%. I'd be okay so long as I didn't spend too much time like that. I stumbled up the hill back toward the HAB. As I crested the rise, I saw something that made me very happy and something that made me very sad. The HAB was intact, but the MAV was gone. Right at that moment, I knew I was not good, but I didn't want to just die out on the surface. I limped back to the HAB and fondled my way onto the airlock. As soon as it equalized, I threw off my helmet. Once inside the HAB, I doffed the suit and got my first good look at my injury. It would need stitches. Fortunately, all of us had been trained in basic medical procedures, and the HAB had excellent medical supplies. A quick shot of local anesthetic, irrigate the wound, 9 stitches, and I was done. I'd be taking antibiotics for a couple weeks, but other than that, I would be fine. I knew it was hopeless, but I tried firing up the communications. No signal, of course. The primary satellite had broken off, and it took the reception antenna with it. The HAB had secondary communication systems, but they were both just for talking to the MAV, which would which would use its much more powerful systems to relay to Hermes. Thing is, that only works if the MAV is still around. I had no way to talk to Hermes. In time, I could locate the dish out on the surface, but it would take weeks for me to rig up any repairs, and that would be too late. In an abort, Hermes would leave orbit within 24 hours. The orbital dynamics made the trip safer and shorter the earlier you left, so why wait? Checking out my suit, I saw the antenna had plowed through my biomonitor computer. When on an EVA, all the crew suits were networked so we could see each other's status. The rest of the crew would have seen the pressure in my suit drop to nearly zero, followed immediately by my bio signs going flat. Add to that watching me stumble down a hill with a spear through me in the middle of a sandstorm? Yeah, they thought I was dead. How could they not? They may have even had a brief discussion about recovering my body, but regulations are clear. In the event a crewman dies on Mars, he stays on Mars. Leaving his body behind reduces weight for the MAV on the trip back. That means more disposable fuel and a larger margin of error for the return thrust. No point in giving that up for sentimentality. So that's the situation. I'm stranded on Mars. I have no way to communicate with the Hermes or Earth. Everyone thinks I'm dead. I'm in a hab designed to last 31 days. If the oxygenator breaks down, I'll suffocate. If the water reclaimer breaks down, I'll die of thirst. If the hab breaches, I'll just kind of explode. If none of those things happen, I'll eventually run out of food and starve to death. So yeah, it's bad.